Hi Stampers, this is Lisa with Queen Bee Creations. Just getting set up here today for another Facebook Live where we will be creating a pull tab pop-up card. I'm just kind of making sure that I'm live on my page. Facebook's been giving me some headaches lately, so I wanted to make sure we are indeed live, and it looks like I can see it, so welcome. So thank you for joining me today. I always appreciate it when you guys stop in and stamp with me. Today we are creating this pull tab card. And so I'm going to show you how we make that piece that's going to go in and out. I am using a new stamp set. This stamp set is from the 2019-2020 annual Stampin' Up catalog. So let's get started. So here we are down on my workspace. And this is the card we're going to be creating. To start out, what I did was I took Blueberry Bushel, which is one of our blues. It is an in color. It's the 2018-2020 in color, just one of them, and I really like it because it's a pretty blue. You could use any color you'd like, you know, as long as you follow the measurements, the card will all work the same, but this is what I used. So I used a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 piece of the Blueberry Bushel, and while I was at it I cut a piece of the thick Whisper White at the same size, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Also out of Whisper White, I cut another piece that is 3 inches by 4 3/4. This is going to be the piece that's going to go up and down. And then for the front of the card, for decoration, I have a mat, and I did 2 of them. This one is 2 3/4 by 3 3/4, and this is Blueberry Bushel. Here's a Seaside Spray. This is the new one of the new in colors. So this will go from 2019 to 2021. This piece is 2 1/2 by 3 1/2, which makes my piece of Whisper White 2 1/4 by 3 1/4. So those are the pieces I started out with. I wanted to stamp sort of a background onto the piece back here, and I didn't quite line it up correctly, so this time let's work a little harder on that. But how I did that was I used the Stamparatus because I wanted a background that was kind of even. And so I'm going to take my piece of Blueberry Bushel. Again, this is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I'm going to place it in here with the magnet, and I'm just using one because if you use 2, there's a tendency that they snap together and they could break in half, which this one actually did. And it's a good thing I had the duct tape on it because that keeps the pieces from going everywhere and having a rough edge. And this also helps me pull it up and down off of the Stamparatus. So I'm going to take this one and I'm going to move it closer to the edge than I had the other. And I'm just going to go ahead and pick up the stamp. Now I'm going to use Blueberry Bushel ink because I just kind of wanted a tone on tone. So I'm going to go ahead and stamp the first one. Then in order to keep them in a row and evenly spaced, I'm not going to touch the stamp. I'm going to leave it on its plate, but I'm going to pull out the plate and move it just down one on the hinge. This is what we call hinge stamping. And I'm just going to repeat the process down to the edge of the card. And so this is kind of quick and easy. And like I said, you could stamp it randomly if you wanted to. My accounting background makes my head a little funny when they go cattywampus. So I like them neatly placed and even. But that's just me. Sometimes it does look a little better random. I just don't do that very well. So now I'm going to take the stamp off and I'm going to move it to the other side. And so I'm just going to place it over here. And then I'm going to come back with my plate. And now I've got the stamp where I want it. So then all I do is pick it up. And then I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to go ahead and ink it up. Stamp, move it down a hinge. Then again, this is a piece of our chamois I cut mine into fourths so it would be an easier size to use on my Stamparatus. Then I can bring this in and come up again. And I guess I could have done this ahead of time. I'm sorry if this is boring you as I sit here and stamp a bunch of random hearts. But I just kind of wanted to show you how great the Stamparatus works at this. If you don't have a Stamparatus yet, you want one. You can purchase them off of my site. They are $49.99, but they are so worth it. It's a stamp positioning tool, so like you see here, I'm able to position the stamps exactly where I want them. I can stamp evenly in a row. I've made a template where we can stamp in a circle, evenly spaced. And if you ever stamp words and they don't come out real vibrant, they're not a deep enough or dark enough color for you, the Stamparatus allows you to stamp again in exactly the same spot, so you can ink the same thing twice in the same spot, making it appear darker, which comes in really handy. You can also do embossing. You can stamp, if I was to stamp this in a color, I can stamp it and then I can come back and ink it up again with Versamark and stamp over it, and then use clear embossing powder, and it will appear embossed in the bottom color even though we don't have embossing powder in a color. This kind of gives us the effect that it is embossed in that color, if that makes sense. I do have other videos where I've shown that. It's on my YouTube channel. I encourage you to go over there and subscribe. I always take my Facebook Live videos and I put them over there, but I edit them some. I got my goofs, that kind of stuff. And then sometimes when I just don't want to do it as a Facebook Live, but I want to show you guys something, there will be an additional video over there. So my username at YouTube is the same. It's Queen Bee Creations. You can find me on Pinterest, all those things under that name. So now I'm done with my stamping, and now I'm going to bring in a trimmer, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the piece that's going to come up in the middle. So if you see this, I've actually cut on 3 sides, not on all 4, just on 3. And how I did that was by using my trimmer and the measurements on it. I'm going to come in and just take a piece of my sticky strip. Probably should have done this ahead of time, but I kind of wanted to show you why I did this. But I'm going to lay the sticky strip down and not pull the backing off. And what this will do is it'll make my numbers a whole lot easier to read. Since they're dark letters and I had dark paper, they were hard to read. So I found that if I put that tear and tape behind it, leaving the backing, it made my letters pop. So it's a much easier to make measurements this way. So in order to cut out that middle, the first thing I did was I lined it up on the short side at 3.5. And then I'm going to take my cutting blade, because our trimmer has 2. There's the scoring blade and then the cutting blade. We make sure we're using the cutting blade, and I'm going to start at 3/4 of an inch. And so I'm measuring up the little point that's on the blade with the 3/4 of an inch. And then I'm going to cut up to 4 3/4. Then I'm going to flip it around and do the same exact thing. I'm going to come over here to 3.5. My blade is still here at 4 3/4. So then I'm going to bring it down to 3/4 of an inch, which will make it match the other side. Then I'm going to spin it. Let's see, my hearts are going a certain direction, so I got to make sure I'm doing this straight. 4 3/4 this way. Okay, so this is going to be my bottom. So this is what I'm cutting. So I want to make sure that all of my shapes are the right direction, that this cut's going to be on the bottom. You can see if I was to make that cut up here, all my hearts would be upside down. So mark it at 4 3/4 up here. And then we're going to go in and go from 3/4 of an inch to 3.5, which is basically just connecting the two sides of what we just cut. So now I have this out of the middle. Now, in order to make it slide, how it's going to do here, I need to make some score lines, and you can do this with your trimmer, or you can do it with simply scored. It works both ways. I'm going to start, let's see, over here at the bottom. I want to put this, again, I've got the bottom right here, so I'm going up from the bottom 1.25 inch. And then I'm moving the cutting blade out of the way. Don't do that. But we're going to just score back and forth between those two cut marks, just in the middle. So that was at 1.25, and then I'm going to go to 3 inches, and I'm going to do the same thing, just scoring back and forth, and then 4 3/4. So that's going to be straight across the top. So now we have our score lines. And I'm going to start by just taking and folding that straight up. Burnish with the bone folder. I'm going to fold this one down. Again with the bone folder. Let's just make sure it creases really well. And there's that. So now you have the piece that goes like this. So does that make sense? That's the hardest part of this entire card, I swear. From here on out, it's easy. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this over. And this card's been all over Pinterest. I think that I found it on Dawn Griffith's blog, but it's kind of all over. It's a wonderful card that gives some interaction, but it's still kind of easy to do. And you can do it with, you know, any stamp set. She had done it with something totally different, and then different colors, different stamp set. Just make it your own. So I put tear and tape down here, and then I'm going to line up this piece of Whisper White. It's a thick Whisper White, and I'm just going to line it up with the bottom. Now it's going to hang over a little bit on each side, and that's fine because we want it to stay in its track. Once we put the other piece behind it, it'll stay put. It won't flop out this direction. So that's why it has to have a little bit of an overhang on the back side. Then we're going to just put the back on it. So again, more tear and tape. And you could use snail. I just wanted it, because of the interaction, to have a little bit more strength to its stick. The tear and tape is a little stronger, so I use it for interactive cards and for boxes, those sorts of things. The tear and tape works really well. And then I'm going to line up the Whisper White back. Again, these are the same size. So I'm just trying to line it up. Now this one had a little bit of an overhang, so one piece was slightly bigger than the other. Don't panic. It's really easy to come back here and just trim off the excess. Anyway, so you get the idea. So that's going to be our piece. Oh. Okay. We should have cut the half circle in there before we put this on here. Before adhering the two together and putting on the there we go. So I kind of cheated, but if before you had put the backing on, if you had laid the two front and back together and punched this, you would have gotten the tab very easily. And then I'm just going to take an 1/8 inch hole punch. And I'm going to punch a hole. Right there. And so that's going to give us a piece that we can pull on to have it go in and out. So now we're ready to stamp. So I have my interactive piece, and I'm going to stamp a sentiment on the inside here. So I'm using a Good Man. This is a new stamp set that's going to be in the 2019-2020 annual catalog. It's great for Father's Day. And so I'm going to use some sentiments out of this. How about being a good dad starts with being a good man. I mean, you could use any of them. Here I've got, you do a great job of being a great guy. Relax your way. It's your day. So there's lots of different options. I'm again going to use my blueberry bushel. Do I have a fancy fold card class? No, not yet, but I could do one. That might be a good idea for my next online class. Because I love fancy fold cards. I think they are so fun. And as part of my online class, all you have to do is buy the stamp set and inks, you know, whatever you need to do it. And then I mail you the papers already kind of pre-cut, and then you just stamp and assemble at home. And I have a Facebook group that I create, and you just log into the Facebook group, and there's going to be videos and pictures and all the instructions that you need to create all the cards. So here's Relax Your Way. It's your day. And then I have some blueberry bushel ribbon. This is our, I think it's 1/8 inch cross grain ribbon. And so I'm just going to take a little piece of this and feed it through the hole. I find if I cut it on an angle, then there's a point, and the point makes it easier to get it through the little hole. I've got blue fingers. Inky fingers is a sign that you're having lots and lots of fun. Go ahead and put that one away. So now, for my main focal point on the front, I'm going to use, this is a man with a kid on his shoulders. I'm going to stamp this in Memento ink so that I can color it with my Stampin' Blends. So I figured, you know, he's wearing blue jeans, so I brought out my Night of Navy Stampin' Blends, and I've got the dark and the light. I'm going to start with the dark, and I'm just going to follow the lines that the artist used and create the shadows. So just really quickly, I'm just going to highlight where the shadows go, and then I'm going to come in with my light, and I'm going to make small circles going over the edges. So there's his pants. Okay, and there's the little kid up here. He's wearing jeans too. So I'm just going to color that. That's just a part of his leg right there. Okay, here he's got some tennis shoes on, so we'll give it a dark bottom. So this is dark smoky slate. And I've got light smoky slate for the top of his sneaker. And you could use any color you want. This is just what I chose to do with it. We have an ivory marker that's a great skin tone. So I'm just going to use that on his arms. And we can see a little bit of the kid's face up there. So I'm going to give a little bit right there. Now for his hair, I'm going to give him brown hair, so I'm going to use soft suede, again light and dark. And I like using the two colors on the hair because it gives it kind of some highlights. Yes, I love my blends too. I use them a lot. Okay, so his shirt. for his jacket, shirt, whatever this is. I'm going to again go with the dark on the shadow parts. There's a few little tricks to using the blends, but for the most part they're pretty easy and a lot of fun once you start playing with them. And in the new catalog we're coming out with new colors, so I'm real excited about that. And then we have the storage cubes that they store in that fit perfectly. So I'm loving my storage cubes for that. Okay, so now you can see when I color with the Stampin' Blends, it does bleed through the back. That's perfectly normal. And now I'm just going to mat my layers. And so I'm going to take the Whisper White and put it onto the Seaside Spray, trying to give it an even border. And then I'm going to put that onto a layer of the Blueberry Bushel. And I'm going to bring in our card base. And I'm going to pop this one up on dimensionals because I like to have a layer popped up. And we can still do that even though it's an interactive card that moves. All I'm going to do is make sure that my Stampin' Dimensionals are only on that one section. So you can see this part has nothing, but then the 4 are on the riser that goes up. You follow me there? Okay, so leaving it kind of at this angle so that I can line it up really well. Let's take the tops off my dimensionals and bring in my layer. And so I'm just kind of lining it up with the base of that fold and then just layering it up. So now that's our card. So I hope you liked today's card. I had a lot of fun creating it and showing you how I made it. I hope you like it as well. Again, I hope all of you are signed up on my newsletter. I get a little, you do want to be signed up on my newsletter because that's where I send out all the special deals. And if I'm going to be creating that new online class and you're interested in it, being on my newsletter will let you know when it becomes available. And then when you purchase from me, you get added to my VIP group on Facebook, which is another bonus because I share lots more tutorials and things on there. And I've just started something. I'm doing a Help Me Grow customer referral program. So if you refer someone to me who makes a purchase or takes a class, I'm going to reward you both for that. So just something you want to keep an eye out for, because one of the best compliments that you can give me is your referral, and I really appreciate that. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you back here next Monday at 2:30 for another Facebook Live. If you have something in particular you want to see me demonstrate, if you found something on Pinterest, you want to know how it was done, shoot me an email or pop onto my Facebook page and let me know. I'd be happy to help you out. So thanks for joining me. Bye.